The Marvel Cinematic Universe. This is a movie franchise that has been around since 2008 with the start of Iron Man and has spanned all the way up until now, 2025. Multiple phases, multiple movies, multiple storylines, and characters that we have all followed. But one thing that is always debated is ranking these movies. Which is the best? Which is the worst? Which phase has been the best? So, today, we are going to get to the bottom of it. We are going to get some of those things answered today in this video. And that's because today we are talking every Marvel movie in Phase 1 ranked and explained. But before we get into anything, guys, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, hit that noti bell. Alright, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Phase 1. And I would like to also state that I'm not saying any of these movies are bad. Just because they are at the bottom of my list does not mean I think it's a bad movie. I will be giving it a score out of 10. And honestly, to me, a bad movie is anything below 5 out of 10. That to me says, okay, this is something I regret watching. Versus anything above that, it was at least worth the watch. Above a 7, 7.5, it is worth rewatching. That's kind of how I go into it with movie ratings, and I am pretty critical. So let's just get right into it. And coming in at number 6, we have The Incredible Hulk. Now, this story does give us some really awesome plot points, like the introduction of the Abomination and that really cool fight scene at the end of the movie where they destroy a lot of Harlem. And you also get that brief fight between Hulk and Abomination when he just takes the super soldier serum before he actually turns into the monster. That was a really cool scene. Cool action sequences, but again, I feel like the writing in this movie isn't great. The acting is okay, but we don't get a feel for these characters and we don't really connect with them, or at least I didn't. A lot of their story didn't resonate with me, and maybe this is a little bit of hindsight because we are decades removed. Knowing that a lot of these characters don't show up again or really aren't relevant to any stories in the future makes me care about them a lot less. And again, this isn't a movie that I would go in there and want to rewatch. It was just something where I watched it once, it was fine, I didn't regret watching it, but again, it's not something where I would go out and say, hey, I really want to rewatch that, or hey, you should really go see this movie. It was just kind of there. It had those cool couple of action scenes, and aside from that, it had characters that I didn't resonate with and I didn't really care about. Especially towards the end of the movie. Again, I know Thunderbolt Ross, he does end up returning, but aside from him, the Hulk, and Abomination for a little bit in She-Hulk, no one else really comes back. I know they recently brought back the leader, but still, it's just, these are all characters that end up going nowhere. And I really have a tough time caring about any of them. And that's why this movie honestly rests at about a 6 for me out of 10. It could even go down to a 5.5, but that's where I put this movie. And then coming in at number 5, I have Iron Man 2. Now, this movie I did really enjoy. I actually remember seeing it in theaters. It was really cool, a fun time. I have rewatched it multiple times, so it's not something where I wouldn't want to rewatch it. It does have some really cool action scenes. It gives us War Machine for the first time. We get introduced to Black Widow, Nick Fury, and Tony Stark meet, and that whole dynamic is really cool. But as far as from an overall enjoyment standpoint, plot-wise, it's kind of a mess of a movie. It goes all over the place. They're doing a lot with Justin Hammer, Whiplash, S.H.I.E.L.D. being introduced, Black Widow, War Machine, and then you have everything with Tony's health going on, Pepper Potts, and Stark Industries. Everything is just kind of going 100 miles a minute, and you really never have time to sit back and breathe and let the audience feel any emotion. And maybe that was by design because there's not a ton of emotion to feel in this movie. This movie is more of an action-packed thing that is then setting up the Avengers movie and setting up the potential for team-ups in the future. But again, I feel like that kind of leads to this movie being a bit lackluster. Whiplash, I wasn't a huge fan of him in this movie. I think at the end of the movie, he is very, very stupid. When Tony and Rhodey are lining up where they both put up their repulsors, why did he not just fry them or do something to stop them? He just kind of sat there, let it happen, and let himself get killed. That made no sense at all. I do like the added fact after that Kevin Feige said the little kid lifting up the hand with the Iron Man mask on is confirmed to be Peter Parker. Was that always the plan? No. Is it really awesome and a cool Easter egg? Yes. I always love when they do that type of stuff. But again, all of that aside from the courtroom scene in the beginning of the movie, there really aren't any compelling scenes in this entire movie outside of the action scenes and then maybe one scene between Tony and Nick Fury. But again, all that is kind of jumbled up in the crazy plot where you have so much going on and you have no time to really dive into what just happened, what's going to happen. It's just, again, like I said, 100 miles a minute. So that's why I have this movie at 5. And then coming in at number 4, I have Thor. So, yes, I do put this movie above Iron Man 2. It is actually really close to the next entry on this list. I really enjoyed this movie. I did not see it in theaters. I didn't think it looked great from the trailers. I ended up watching it one day on TV, and I really, really enjoyed it. I thought it was a great movie. I thought it was a fun time. It introduces characters that I am pretty connected to right off the bat. In Thor, Loki, the Warriors 3, Lady Sif, you get Odin in there, who is really, really good. I forget the actor who plays him. I think it's Anthony Hopkins. He is amazing in the role. Again, all the acting in this movie was great. And I'm actually more a fan of Thor when he's more medieval. I know Ragnarok was popular and then Love and Thunder did how it did. I'm much more a fan of this type of Thor, where he is more a medieval type of Thor. Now, again, in Infinity War, I think that's the best version of him. It's a great mesh between Ragnarok Thor and Thor 1, Thor 2 version of Thor. But this, we really do get to see how arrogant Thor is, how much pride he has in himself, in his people, in his home, and in his power. And just seeing the dynamic between Odin and Thor not understanding what Odin is saying until he loses all that power, until he's introduced to Jane Foster, Eric Selvig, and those characters on Earth. And just seeing the dynamic grow between them, I think Chris Hemsworth and Natalie Portman's chemistry was amazing. They were both great. It made me fully believe that they were love interests, and it made me care about their relationship. There wasn't really a scene in this movie where I found myself getting bored or wanting it to go a little bit faster or even wanting to go a little bit slower. I really do think this is a well-paced movie all the way through to the end. It had some good action scenes, and overall is just a really enjoyable story. I really do like the dynamic between Thor and Loki, the two brothers fighting, that moment at the end where he has to sacrifice seeing Jane again and destroying the bridge, the hero's sacrifice. That's, again, what more could you want from a superhero movie? I really, really enjoyed it, and that's why for this movie, I gave it a little bit higher of a score. Iron Man 2, I'm just remembering, I never gave that a score. I'm gonna give that about a 7, so again, I'd rewatch it. This movie I'll put a little bit higher. I'd put it at a 7.2, and again, I take those little points very, very seriously, because again, as we get higher in the 7s, that's where I do recommend those movies to other people, because I really do think they're really good movies and worth the watch. This is a really good movie. It's not great. It has issues, and I acknowledge that. And then we have, coming in next at number 3, we have Captain America, the First Avenger. This is an awesome movie. It's great. You have the story of Steve Rogers trying to get accepted into the military, always getting rejected, the multiple rejections, and then upon his last rejection, he is discovered by that scientist, and he starts asking him questions. He knows Steve is lying, but he sees something more in Steve. And then as the movie unfolds, you find out that he is picking Steve for this super soldier project, and Steve doesn't understand it. He doesn't think he's a great choice. He doesn't think he's a fit for the role. He thinks there are other people stronger. And that's where we get that amazing line about a good man becoming great or a bad man becoming worse. And it's about what's inside of your heart, not the physical capabilities of your body. Because regardless, you're going to be enhanced physically, but you're also going to be enhanced mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. So whatever's inside of you, inside of your heart, is really going to resonate. And that's why the Red Skull went down the path he went, because he was an inherently evil person. And that was just put to times 10 when he took the super soldier serum. So that's why this choice of Steve Rogers was so important and meaningful, to know that you're choosing someone with a great heart who is going to amplify what it means to be a hero. The action is really good in this movie. The characters are people that I care about, the relationships that they build, and it's a sad ending. He loses everyone he knows and loves, and then he wakes up in the future. We know that's going to set up into Avengers, and it just makes you really excited to see, okay, we got to spend this movie with this character in this time period. Now we're removing him from that. Everything he knows is gone. He is at a very low point. How is Steve Rogers, Captain America, going to respond? And I think just the hype of that made me enjoy this movie even more. I would score this movie at about a 7.5. Again, I really enjoyed it. I'm just a kid from Brooklyn. Again, just so many good one-liners, quips in this movie, so many good inspirational lines. I could do this all day. All of that was great. And then at number 2, I am putting Iron Man, the movie that started the Marvel Universe. Obviously, you cannot have a list like this without acknowledging where it all started and what it all started with. I think this movie was really great. To me, it honestly still has some of the best CGI we've ever seen. I actually prefer the way that the old Iron Man suits used to look to some of the ones now, especially like the nanotechy stuff. I'm not a huge fan of that. Just the practical looks of the armor in this movie, and the different story of it, and the story of Tony Stark realizing that he needs to change and his company needs to change, and the acknowledgement of that. And you see the journey he goes on, and the people around him don't want him to go on that journey except for Pepper. She's the only one who really encourages him. Even Rhodey kind of thinks he's losing his mind at some points, rather than supporting his friends. So that creates another interesting dynamic, and it is a really interesting villain. You have Obadiah Stane, and you find out that he was actually the one who orchestrated everything, tried to get Tony killed, all so he could have his company. The action in this movie isn't bad. It's pretty good. The final fight is decent. Compared to the other movies, it's not great. However, for story purposes and for what this movie sets up and everything, especially this is the first movie and it really had to set the tone for the cinematic universe that they were cultivating, I could not put this movie lower in phase 1 ranking. It was a fun movie, enjoyable, would rewatch again. I put this one at about a 7.6 out of 10. So again, very, very close to the first Avenger. And then, speaking of the first Avenger, that brings me to the top spot on our list, the Avengers. The first Avengers movie. This movie was awesome. I remember going to see this in theaters. It was a great experience. Seeing all these characters interact together, where you have Iron Man and Captain America, and asking how he stays so spry. Is it calisthenics? And again, just these funny quips between characters. The moment where Thor goes to hit Captain America's shield and Captain America blocks it, and you get that big explosion, and then you get the big three all together there, kind of acknowledging they're at a stalemate and standoff. And this is where Thor's respect, in my opinion, really starts to already grow for Captain America, because this mere human with a shield just stood up to Thor and Mjolnir and didn't back down. And again, I think that's just an awesome scene, awesome moment. This has really, really good action sequences. It has a compelling story throughout, one that makes sense. We have Loki, we then get teases of Thanos and greater threats, which again, hindsight, now knowing what that sets up, I think adds to the enjoyment level of this movie. And the scenes between Loki and Thor were great. Hulk and Thor, awesome. That fight in the helicarrier was really, really fun. Again, that's why I think this movie had some of the best action we've ever gotten. And a lot of the characters and just how they acted was exactly what you'd want if you're a fan of the comics or even the animated series. This felt like an animated series brought to life, which I always say that's probably the best thing you can do, because a lot of times animation captures things better than any live action ever could. So the fact that this felt like an animated movie or an animated series brought to life is a really, really big positive for me. And this movie also sets up a lot of fun things for the future. This gives you a good sense for the team, And I think they balance out the characters really, really well. Again, you don't have all these characters shoehorned into one movie. We've met all these characters before this movie, and now we're just bringing them all together and seeing how they all balance out. And I think they do a really, really great job balancing these characters out and telling their story in a great, fun way and a really interesting way, one that makes sense. Let me know what all of you think. How would you rank Marvel's Phase 1? Would you rank them differently, or do you agree with my list? Let me know in the comments below. And while you guys are down there, please, for me, like this video, subscribe to the page, hit that noti bell. And I will see all of you in the next video. Goodbye.